The thing live here on A2D Radio with Mitch Williams. I'm Chrome stepping in for Tom. And now you out there, like, subscribe, follow. Let's roll the video.
Oh my God! I'm embarrassed! He's flying!
Welcome in. It's almost time.
What's up, fam? We're back here live Monday afternoon. And you know what that means? It's our time to talk baseball with our resident baseball expert and former Philadelphia Philly, Mitch Williams. Mitch, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing great, Chrome, especially where the Phillies are playing.
Yeah, well, the hell of a job coming out the All-Star break, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to touch on their performance in the All-Star game and many other topics with the trade deadline coming around. Our sponsor first, we got to pay some bills. We have Philadelphia Philly Sports Trips, the 5 for 5 for all you guys out there who are looking to have a wonderful experience. Hit the road, go check it out. Premium travel and tailgating experiences for passionate Philadelphia fans. Hollis Thomas is involved. Other Philadelphia Eagles will be involved as well. Check them out, phillysportstrips.com. And our topic of conversation, we're going to open up with our agree to disagree topic, Mitch, and that is the call-up and emergence of Johan Rojas has changed the Phillies' plans for the trade deadline. Agree, disagree, and for all you out there, we want to hear what you guys have to say too. I'm going to make sure I try to read some of your comments in as we go along. But Mitch, agree, disagree, this is going to be a game changer for the Phillies at the trade deadline.
You're going to have to see more of this kid before we can say that. And the sad part is we're not going to be able to because we're so close to the trade deadline. So far, the kid has looked great. He can put the bat on the ball. He can cover ground in center field. Our outfield is obviously better with him in center and Marsh in right or left, depending on who's going to DH. That's the problem when it's just such a sticking point because you don't know if Bryce is going to play the field at all this year. That's the part that makes you wonder, why have an extra outfielder? Because Castellanos ain't coming out of the lineup. I can tell you that. He's going to be in right field. The way Marsh is swinging the bat, he ain't coming out of the lineup. And Schwarber's going to have to play left field. So I think they're going to go after pitching, and maybe Rojas will be part of a trade come the trade deadline.
That's a fair point. I mean, the kid came out, he played really well in the doubleheader, had that fantastic double play ball, making the catch against the wall, and Ellis making a great play at first base on the other end of that. But you know, he hit pretty decently. So a good start for him. I think it's too small of a sample size, as you said. I think there's going to be some other factors like Bryson Stott, who's continuing to hit. Alec Boehm came out hitting very well out of the All-Star break. And I know that me and you talked about this a few weeks ago when I was on with you. You know, when we brought up the idea of like a Paul Goldschmidt, and since then you've heard like a Nolan Arenado's name. And, you know, to your point, Mitch, it's tough to see, first of all, where there's going to be a hole in the field, because is Bryce coming back? Is he going to play the outfield, or are they going to try him at first base and try to maybe not put as much stress on him? And if
I would
that's
put
the
him
case,
at first base. I mean,
yeah.
just do it. Put him at first base. But now that I'm hearing Arenado's name mentioned, my goodness, this lineup and defense would automatically get better.
I think Arenado is and as good as Paul Goldschmidt is, and he's now a former MVP, your reigning MVP in the National League. Nolan Arenado's younger. His glove is one of the best in the history of the game.
Yes.
And the way he's hit the last two and a half, well, say 2 years, because he's talking about all of last year, second half of the year before, and the way he's hit here in the first half, I mean, he's a game changer for them. You know, he's a bona fide superstar player, an MVP
Yes,
candidate.
he is. And then you can get around that. You can afford to play Schwarber in left field because this guy at third base is going to make plays on balls that normally wouldn't have a play made on. He's that good a third baseman. And to insert him into the middle of that lineup that just gives Rob Thomson all the weapons he could possibly want.
Oh, like 100%. And then when you add into that, a couple of the other factors of if Bryce is playing first base, your infield's already crowded because we're looking at Alec Bohm. Where does he factor in? And then if Bryce does play the field, maybe that's when you shift Schwarber to DH, and then you are looking at an outfield opening, and that's where Rojas fits in. I think you're spot on. I think pitching is the target. I don't know that the game plan has changed. I think when it comes to a Nolan Arenado, if you can get him, you go get him. You'll find his place for him.
That's my opinion. I mean, you're getting bona fide. How many times you won the Gold Glove now? I mean, it's ridiculous.
A lot.
Yeah.
Almost every year of his career, I think, at this point.
I mean, he puts on a display over there. He makes plays that other people just dream about making.
And it makes your pitching better. The defense behind makes your pitching better.
Absolutely. There's no question. And a guy like that playing next to Turner, the range involved with both of those two, the ball is going to have to be smoked through that 5-hole there in order to get through with Turner and Arenado on that side of the infield.
I mean, you talk about it. It's ridiculous to think about, even without Reese being in the lineup, right? You're talking about an infield potentially looking something along the lines of maybe Bryce plays first base, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, and Nolan Arenado. And oh, by the way, in your outfield, look what you're already running out there when you're talking about Marsh. Marsh is your lightest bat, but he's still a contactor. You need those guys to get on base. And then you have Nick Castellanos, who's having the year he's having, and Schwarber, who his bat has come alive a little bit here since the All-Star break has broken out. He's looked good in these first 4-game series against San Diego.
I don't see them going after another bat.
I'd be shocked.
They'd have to. Number one, you have to send Derek Hall down, and then leaves no room for Bohm. Are you going to teach Bohm to play left field? No, you're not. No. That's not going to happen. So he would look like the odd man out in that situation because they're not going to platoon. Well, maybe they would platoon Bryce and Bohm at first base, depending on the left-hander, and DH Harper to give him a day off. Who knows? But I just don't see him going after anything offensively. I think they're going to go after pitching at the deadline.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if Arenado is there to be had for the right deal, they pull the trigger on that regardless, but that's the exception of not. I think it's business as usual. Stay the course and look to improve that pitching.
And what would you have to give up to get Arenado? I've been hearing Stott's name mentioned. You don't trade Stott.
No, I wouldn't trade him if I were the Phillies. I'll take him as a Cardinals fan.
I'm telling you right now, we are looking at another Chase Utley, only he's a much better second baseman.
Probably.
I think he's going to grow into being a guy that hits 20 home runs a year because he's got such a good approach. So I leave him there for the next 10 years. That's my second baseman. He's hands down. This is no slight on Chase at all. I love the way he played the game, but he was not as defensively gifted as Bryson Stott is. Stott is a really good second baseman.
Now, Arenado is locked in. Would you throw Alec Bohm in a deal to upgrade to? And I mean, it's a definitive upgrade. I think maybe it might cost you. You're not going to lose Painter. I could see maybe Abel and Bohm.
I would, as much as I like Alec and the way he is adjusted to playing in this city, he would be a big piece in a trade for a guy like Arenado because, okay, they're losing a third baseman. Well, they're getting one. And everyone has seen how much improvement Bohm has made defensively. To me, he's an unbelievably gifted first baseman. He's just been playing on the wrong side of the diamond his whole life. But at third base, the plays he's made lately, he is really concentrated on the defensive side of the baseball this year.
Yeah. And I think it's a win-win when you look at both sides, right? Because you're getting a bona fide MVP candidate, all-time Gold Glove guy over at
Oh,
third base,
you're talking
which is a
about
rich history in Philadelphia, by the way. When you talk about
right,
Mike Schmidt and Scott Rowland have been over there,
right, and I'll say it. Scott Rowland was the best third baseman I ever played with, and I only played with him in A ball at Clearwater when I was coming back up. This kid, he was really gifted over there. Yeah, Arenado's better. You're talking Brooks Robinson type third baseman when you
I think
talk
he's
about
up there.
Arenado.
I
Absolutely.
agree. I agree with you. And I mean, you're talking about the upper echelon, the top 4 or 5
5,
third baseman of all time.
easily in the top 5.
Yeah,
If,
and it makes sense because he's locked in. He's still young. He's only 30 years old, so he's locked in for I think the next 4 years. He's not too old by the time that deal comes around. I don't want to say too old, but he's still going to have time for another contract after this contract is up.
and what are the Cardinals doing? They're not doing
Nothing.
anything.
They're terrible.
So
it's awful.
it would be a huge salary dump for them because they're getting Bohm back, who is still under control. He's not making much money. I don't think he's making over $1 million, as a matter of fact. I could be
Right.
wrong. But that's what St. Louis needs to do.
Well, he's controllable.
Yeah.
And I think Jack Flaherty is a trade chip for this year, the offseason for them as well. So if you could get a guy like an Abel to, who might be close to coming up and contributing, they're looking to upgrade pitching. You're losing Adam Wainwright this year. It's a win-win for both. And they have Jordan Walker, who's the next guy in line to play first base after Paul Goldschmidt. So you're looking at a future corner of Alec Bohm and Jordan Walker. Makes sense for the Cardinals. Makes sense for exactly where the Phillies are right now. And you're keeping your top prospects in terms of like Painter is not going to go anywhere. And
Right.
Stott should not be traded. The Phillies should, if they trade him, I'll take him. But they should never trade him at this point.
His name should not be mentioned in a trade in this city. And not for at least the next 10 years. Because that's how good that kid is. They really found some. I saw it last year. Just in his approach at the plate, the plane he swung his bat on, everything about him says he is going to be one of those guys that's a 20 home run guy and plays Gold Glove defense.
He's just like, I look at him and the word that comes to mind is just he's a professional. He's a professional hitter. He's a professional fielder. The way he carries himself on the field, in the dugout with his teammates, he just comes across to me as like the ultimate young professional baseball player.
Right.
There's a maturity level with him.
Absolutely. I think he is a guy that learns from every at-bat, every ground ball, every hitter. He's out there taking notes. He's not just standing out there rubbing his glove, thinking about nothing. He is thinking about getting better every day. And you can see it just in the way he goes about his business.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he's got some of the best guys around him. And when you talk about a Trey Turner and all around him now, in terms of helping him to learn how to prepare for that next level, I just think it's an ideal situation. It would be insane for the Phillies to move him. If there is an untouchable on the major league roster right now, it would be him.
Yeah. I wouldn't even entertain a trade for anyone. I hear him talking about going after Ohtani and trading Stott and Painter and Abel, trading away your entire future to get a guy that you can't afford to sign.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Ohtani though. It's like that. He's that guy. It's like I would give up anything for him.
I'm going to tell you right now, he is either going to be a Dodger or he is fixing to be a Met, because Cohen will be willing to spend the $800 million to sign him. And that's what it's going to take. And you got to pay him as a starter, which top tier starters now are making $40 to $45 million a year.
I'll tell you a team I think to look out for. And there's a history there, and with their market, Seattle. I could see him landing in Seattle, put him with Rodriguez. Those
Uh,
two bats, and I don't think Seattle's too far away. And they're, with Ichiro, and they have a huge Asian contingency there to where you talk about a guy who would be a superstar player in a city and market the game the right way. I mean, it's a problem with Major
Seattle,
League Baseball.
Seattle or New York.
New
California
York
may
would be great.
New York would be great. Um, and I know Cohen. I don't know him, but he's not going to be outspent.
See, to me, I look at the Dodgers, right? And there's enough star power there. And I feel like the part of the problem with Mike Trout and Otani is they're in LA, which if you go to a Dodger game, it's like going to a Laker game, right? And to me, it's more of a social event.
It's
It's
always
not
been a social event.
correct. And then, you obviously have the quote unquote stepchildren of Los Angeles, which is the Angels, who you have literally the two faces of your game. The two faces of your
Right.
game, and they've been completely irrelevant. They had Albert Pujols there, all three of them at one point, who's one of the biggest ambassadors of the game. And the Angels were irrelevant. They weren't even an afterthought for people when it would come to thinking about standings and things on their schedule. And that's sad. It's sad. And I
You
would like
cannot go out and I mean, they got lucky because Otani's a top tier pitcher as well,
yeah,
but he can't be your best bat in your lineup and your number one starter. You have to, him and Trout have to be split up. Those two salaries, no, you go spend one of those salaries on a bunch of pitching.
yeah,
Guys that are established and ready to go. If they want to win, when one of those guys are there,
yeah.
that's
I
what
mean,
they're going to have to do.
I agree, and I do think that I don't think Trout's going anywhere, but I do think Otani makes more sense to come to an East Coast team, New York, Boston,
Absolutely. Yeah,
somewhere he could be marketed the right way.
he's making more money in Japan right now via marketing stuff than
Hmm.
he's making playing here.
It's crazy.
So whatever he's going to get paid, he's going to make twice that back in Japan. He's a national hero back there. He's on everything.
Hmm.
So he's going to go where he thinks he has a chance to win a championship.
Yeah.
So the Mets have the players to do it, but they got to get a different mix of players because the mix they got right now ain't working.
Yeah, and I would have put a pin on that because one of my questions I have for you is going to be in terms of disappointments around the league in the first half. But you're spot on, and listen, it's crazy that coming in you looked at Verlander and Scherzer and thought lights out, and it hasn't been that way.
No,
I mean,
they're
Father
both
Time
getting
catches up.
older. Yes, you're never going to beat the clock.
It's
Trust me, I
undefeated.
try every single day to beat the clock, and I don't.
It's undefeated.
I get up every morning, and the hair on my face is whiter than it was the day before. So Father Time always catches you.
It is. It's going to get you one day or the other. So let's jump back here real quick before we jump into the the Phillies and the San Diego series. Just so your quick thoughts. Decent showing by the Phillies in the All Star game. Castellanos 1 for 2, runs scored. Kimbrel gets the save, 2 Ks. First time the National League wins the All Star game since 2012.
How
What
sad
were your
is that?
thoughts? So
I
it's weird.
honestly, I didn't see the game, but to have our Phillies go there and represent the way they did,
They did
that
well.
was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? It's weird. So when I heard that it had been the first time in 10 games or 10 years since they had won, I went down the rabbit hole of looking at everything. So the majority of what I feel like is my lifetime, I was born in 85. I feel like the American League has dominated the last 20 or 25 years of the All-Star game. I
Yeah.
think National League's only won like 6 or 7 games. But when you look at the history, right? It's crazy because probably in the 80s and before, the National League smoked the American League every year for about 2 or 3 decades. So when you look at the all-time record, it's only a 3-game difference. I think it's National League 44 and American League 47, but it doesn't feel that way because the National League never wins anymore.
It's because baseball changed. the style of base, everything went to a home run now.
Yeah.
Everything's based on a home run. And back then, the National League knew how to manufacture runs. There's a difference. And even in an all-star game, if you got a guy on second, nobody out, the guy that's coming to the plate is going to get that guy to third. Whether he's got to drag a bunt with him, put a bunt down, hit and run, whatever he needs to do, that's what would have been done back then. Now, you got a guy on second base and no outs, you're trying to hit a two-run homer.
Yeah.
When you run into all-star pitching, it's a little bit harder to hit that two-run homer.
Well, you're starting to get, we are starting, there was years where we saw it was kind of, it was the exhibition and guys were nonchalant defensively and throwing cookie cutters up down the middle, and you had higher scores. You're starting to see more competitive games now. You're seeing better pitched games. I mean, yeah, local guy Zach Gallen open up for the National League this year. He pitched fantastically, and they had pitchers. They did the one inning every pitcher, and it was lights out. It was a really good game in terms of actual quality of play.
Do you want to face an all-star pitcher every time you walk up to the plate?
That's how it should be, though, Mitch. It wasn't like that for a long time.
That's what an all-star game is about. All-star hitters facing all-star pitchers. And I'm always going to say the pitching is going to outdo the hitting more times than not.
I agree. And I never, I like the idea of a competitive game. I never liked the idea that we had to incentivize players by putting home field advantage on the line.
Now, is that still a deal?
No, it's not.
That's what I thought I heard the other day. I'm talking about it last week.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I thought that rule was still in place.
No, that's gone. But I like that. I does feel like the last couple of years, it's the old school mentality of they're buddy and stuff beforehand. It's not like the old days with Pete Rose, who would, take a guy out at home plate in an all-star game and end his career like Ray Fosse. But, there is a competitive nature to it now. Again, where they want to win, like represent for your league.
There should be that. I only got to pitch in one, and I had so much adrenaline just thinking about going out there, and I finally got to go out there. I don't know what it should be. That should be the pinnacle of you wanting to be your best. Not going out there and lazy, not running balls out, that kind of thing. Not putting everything you got on a pitch. Because the people that are paying to go to those all-star games deserve to see you play at your best and see why you are an all-star.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, good job by the Phillies. Good showing here. National League gets the win 3-2, first time in 10 years. We're going to run our commercial here. We're going to take a step away for a minute. And then once we do, we'll come back on the other end. We're going to talk about this past series coming out of the All-Star break. Philadelphia Phillies playing very well against San Diego. And I actually want to get your take on San Diego too, Mitch, when we on the other side, on what we've seen from them this year, or what we haven't seen from them this year, as well as we're going to preview the series coming up this week. That'll lead into Mitch's show next week with Tom. So let's step away real quick. Philly Sports Trips. Check it out. I think Ralph might be hopping in the back end here. All right, we'll wait 1 second because I think Ralph's hopping back in. Poor Ralph's on vacation over here. I feel bad for him. He's helping us out. Oh, he's there. Okay, Ralphie's going to run the commercial now. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back once we get everything ironed out. We think.
Yeah, he's coming.
I have a light that went out, and I can't figure out how to plug the damn thing back in.
You know what, Mitch? While we have a second, let's talk about your company over here. Tell us about what you got going on over there.
I'm a partner at Raymond Transportation Corporation. We handle freight to all 48 states, rail, anything you got, truckload, LTL, anything you need shipped coast to coast, call Raymond Transportation. REHMANN. Normally we'd have a phone number up here on the screen, and I don't recall the phone number off the top of my head.
Yeah, so make sure you guys, any of your freight needs, make sure you guys are hitting them up, RTS, and they'll take care of you.
RTC.
RTC. Jesus, RTS. You know what
I don't
RTS
know.
used to be? It was my buddy's my buddy's band back in the day.
Oh, really? There
Yeah.
it is. Now I'm lit up.
There you go. You know what we're gonna do? I don't know. He's taking a minute over there. Let's just start. Let's
He
start.
can
the second
edit
half.
those in anyway, can't they?
I don't know, but we're gonna start. So Phillies come out three. They take 3 of 4 against San Diego. Lose. They drop the first game. Come back, win 3 in a row, including a doubleheader. Quick thoughts on the way that the Phillies came out of the All-Star break.
The way they came out was the way I was hoping they were going to come out. I would have been happy with a 2-2 split in that series. That San Diego team, that's a talented team, but they ain't been doing what they should be doing all year. And I kind of wonder what kind of teammate Tatis is.
Yeah,
Because they really haven't done much since he came back, have they?
they have not. And you know what? The other thing too, Mitch. This isn't the first time this team's underachieved. They spent a lot of money this offseason. They went out last year. They made moves. And I know that they made it to the National League Championship Series last year. However, they scuffled that second half of the year last year.
Yeah.
It was a rough road to get there. And I feel like this year again, same thing. Like they're 10 games out. They're the third highest payroll in baseball, and they're higher than the Phillies, and they're 10 games out.
Well, how many games out are we?
Let me pull
Last
up off the
time
top
I
of my
checked,
head
we
here.
were 12.
See, the Phillies division is a much more difficult division. I'm not saying that the West is not, because obviously you have the Dodgers there, and that's
Yeah,
going
you
to
have
be
Dodgers,
something.
the Diamondbacks.
Well, the D-backs have been they've been kind of slowly building themselves up there. So the Phillies are 10 and a half games out, but the difference is the Phillies are 51 and 42. Okay? Arizona is 44 and 50. So Phillies are 10 and a half games out, but they're chasing a team that's 30 games above 500.
What is Arizona's record?
Arizona, so the Dodgers are in first. They're only 14 games above 500 at 53 and 39. Arizona is at 52 and 42. So they're 2 games out. But when you look at that West is nowhere near as competitive as the East is. Again, the Phillies would be about a game and a half out of the Dodgers right now if they were in the West.
Right. It's changed. I mean, it goes back and forth, East and West, who's got the stronger division, that kind of thing. But when I look at what the Phillies did coming out, they went out and beat a very talented team, 3 out of 4 games. That's something that they can keep building on. I was worried that the June they had and the beginning of July, okay, they were hot. I didn't want them to get into the All-Star break, relax for 3 days, come back, and not be that same team. Well, they've managed to avoid that with this last series.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And, I feel like overall, for the most part, they pitched fairly well in the series. The bats came alive. And again, when you look at guys who needed to start hitting, when you're talking about the Kyle Schwarbers who needed to start hitting, I mean, I'm just looking at Schwarber, Turner came alive a little bit here. Harper started to come
Didn't
alive a
Harper
little
hit
bit.
a home run?
He did.
Yeah,
He had a pinch hit appearance. He came in and hit a home run.
that's what he needed. That's all he needed was to hit one in a game, get the feel of what it feels like again, and you can see that he's getting stronger.
Yeah,
When
and I
you
think
look at him, he's not he wasn't as jacked up this year as he had been in prior years because he couldn't. You can't do the same weight program when you're coming off of Tommy John surgery.
right.
So to see him hit that home run the other day with Kimbrel catching it, that to me, that's a big, big positive for this team.
Yeah, and if the reports are right that he is getting healthier and closer to playing the field, I think that's just going to help him in terms of at the plate as well. And the thing with Bryce is he could have a 4-month stretch where he doesn't play well. Man, he can rip some off in 2 months and really have a hell of
Oh
a
yeah,
season for himself.
there's
So,
no question. The guy is what they call he's a baseball junkie is what he is.
oh,
He will
100%.
do whatever he has to do to get on that field defensively.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like looking at the lineups, though. I mean, these when a team like that who is supposed to be better and is not playing well, you have to go in there and you have to beat those teams. You
Yes,
cannot give those teams a reason to start turning their season around, and you being the reason why, right? Because San Diego is another team that could rip some off as well. All right, we're going to step away real quick. We're going to run our ad for Philly Sports Trips. We're going to come back. We're going to continue talking about the Phillies and the Padres, and we're going to preview the upcoming series of this week.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
All right, check out our friends over there, Philly Sports Trips, Hollis Thomas, Philadelphia Eagles legends, lots of great trips, both home and away. They're going to be doing a lot of fun things, so make sure you guys check them out, phillysportstrips.com. Back here with Mitch Williams on Here's the Thing. I am Chrome filling in for Tom Arnone today. And Mitch, we've been talking about we went through the All-Star break. We talked about potential trade deadline moves. We're going to keep rolling through the Phillies and the Padres series. But yeah, we were saying on the other side, huge confidence boost coming out against one of the tougher teams in the league that we're just kind of waiting for the lightning bulb to go on for everything to go right. And you don't want to be that team that's the catalyst when it does. I don't think I can hear Mitch.
Wait,
There we go.
Now can you hear me?
I was like, oh, is it me?
right.
I even text Ralph. I said, is it me? He's like, no, we're good. Okay, go ahead, brother. All right, so you don't want to be the catalyst, brother. So
No, you don't want to be
Roll it
that
back.
team. The Phillies didn't want to be that team that launched San Diego into the second half and got them hot. Keep them questioning their ability. And that's what happened over the weekend. The Phillies taking 3 out of 4. That makes the Padres question how good they really are.
And that's a hell of a pitching staff too, right? They put a good pitching staff together. When you talk about guys like Snell, guys like Darvish over there, who know how to win, who have pitched in big games before, that's a way for the offense to start getting some confidence behind them.
Absolutely. The Bryce Stott home run yesterday. Lugo, is that who was pitching?
I believe so.
The way Stott approaches at bats, because Lugo hadn't given up anything to that point. And that one at bat by Bryson Stott, another 2-strike hit, happened to be a home run. That jump started that offense. Mm-hmm. It showed them, okay, this guy's hittable. And that's the great thing about this team right now. if one guy does it, the rest of them see that they're capable of doing it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Absolutely. But big series coming out of that. Now we start to roll in. And I think the next series we have is Milwaukee. We talked about that earlier, who is also coming off of a really strong series, sweeping the red hot Cincinnati Reds, who, ironically enough, in their series, played Milwaukee pretty tough. They pitched well. They just didn't score any runs. So is that a concern coming in that the Milwaukee pitching staff is kind of rolling right now and dealing? And you have an offense that seems to start to be coming alive, and who's gonna win out here?
I just don't think that players today concern themselves with that. Who's coming in? Okay, we've got the Brewers coming in. They're going to do their homework on their pitching staff. They're going to watch how they approach guys, how they pitch certain hitters. All that stuff's going to be looked at. But the thing is, you don't care that they've been red hot. It shouldn't matter. If they come in here red hot, then you should send them out ice cold. That's how you have to look at it. You can only play the game that is in front of you that day, and worry about the series when the series is over. So no, I'm not concerned with Milwaukee.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And so tomorrow, the pitching staff, so Phillies off today. Series kicks off tomorrow. They have Julio Teheran against Aaron Nola. Do you like that matchup for Nola?
Yes, Tehran is. They brought him back out of independent baseball.
Which is crazy. He was so
Yeah,
good for so long with Atlanta. Well, not so long, but
it, it's just one of those situations. The guy knows how to pitch, so I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. But I don't think it's going to be like facing Julio Teheran of 6 or 7 years ago.
no, he's pitched pretty well this year, though. I don't think his record kind of speaks to how well he's pitched. His ERA is around 3.5. So he's pitched pretty well against the hitters, but this is an opportunity now. We need Nola to kind of come out here and give us his best stuff. We need a second half boost up, I think, from Aaron Nola.
All we need from Aaron is consistency. Him being able to go out and repeat throwing the ball downhill every start.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen that from him this year.
Mm-hmm.
Every other start, every third start, he's electric. And it's simply because of the positioning of the fingers on the baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, that hanging curveball that he throws, that's simply because he's around it instead of on top of it. If he's
Yeah.
that guy throwing downhill, creating angles, he's a tremendous pitcher. There's no two ways about it. We should win this game.
Oh, 100%. And then obviously the next matchup they have, the Phillies have Chris Sanchez going up against Wade Miley. I think that's a winnable matchup for them. Wade Miley, you never know who you're going to get on the mound. He has
No.
flashes of high end stuff, but overall, his career's kind of been a story of ebbs and flows.
Well, and Miley, he's not going to be blowing 97, 98. Teheran isn't either. Our offense, in my opinion, thrives against guys that have to spin the ball. If they count on a sinker and what they call a sweeper, which is just a slider,
Right.
if they have command of a slider and command of their sinker, they can give us trouble. But the guys that are high velocity, those are the guys that you worry about more than anything. These two guys aren't going to raise the hair on the back of your neck.
No. I think the matchup of the series is going to be Thursday night, though, when you're looking at Corbin Burns and Tawan Walker, Walker's been phenomenal in the first half of the season. Really has been one of the more stabilizing figures. And it's a close matchup between these two, but Burns is their ace. So I think you could win the first two out of this series. It might be a little bit tougher when you come around to Thursday night.
If you get the first two, that just enables you to relax a little bit more. And what you want to do against an ace is relax. As a hitter, you don't want to go up there. Baseball is 95% perception, Chrome.
Yeah.
Trust me when I tell you that.
Don't
I've
overthink it.
I've watched guys that I'll give you an example. Mike Williams. He pitched here in 93 for us. He was our mop-up guy. A couple years later, he threw 85 and had a good curveball. A couple years later, he saved 43 games for the Pirates. How do you go from being a mop-up guy to being a closer saving 43 games? It's simple. Because when he walked out of that gate when he was a Philly, the entire other bench said, oh, the mop-up guy's coming in. When he walked out of the gate in Pittsburgh, the whole lineup said, oh, shit, here comes the closer. Yep. It's all perception. His stuff didn't change. He didn't develop some unhittable pitch. It's just perception. What the hitters think of you. That's what hitting is.
That's an interesting point that you bring up too, right? Because you talk about, look at a guy like a Mariano Rivera who comes out to enter the Sandman, right? And it was an old ambiance of everything.
Yeah.
Does that get into hitters' heads to where, listen, he threw one pitch and nobody ever hit it. Very rarely did somebody ever hit it. And
they knew it was coming. They just didn't know where it was coming.
I mean, is there an intimidation factor? Is there
Hell yes.
It's intimidation, it's reputation, it's this guy gets on the mound.
It's perception. That's all it is. It's how are you perceived? When a hitter comes to the plate, if he's perceived by that pitcher to be a guy, oh, I can't get him out, he ain't getting him out. If he comes to the plate and you're like, please get in the box, I can't wait to pitch, then it's just how you look at what you're doing and who you're facing.
Yeah, I mean, you go back and I look at it totally makes sense. You look at a guy like you look at the Nolan Ryans or the Bob Gibsons of the world who used to tell somebody, this is your end, this is my part of the plate. You step on my part of the plate, you're going to have one in your ear.
Oh, there's no question. Back then, Nolan was the best because he would walk out at the old Astrodome. Sean Dunston was scared to death of him.
I remember Sean Dunston.
Scared to death. So Sean is on deck, and Nolan was coming out through his warm-up pitches. He walked clear over the third base line and was like brushing it with his foot, looking in the dugout, in the Cubs dugout, as to say, don't bunt. That's how Nolan got that across. And I think it was Jody Davis yelled, get your ass on the mound. And Sean's in the on-deck circle. He's saying, shut the hell up.
Yeah, I'm the one who's stepping in the damn plate.
So he gets in the box, and this is when they were accusing Mike Scott and Nolan Ryan of scuffing the baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Nolan throws the first fastball to Sean. Strike one. And Gene Michael, the manager, screams at Sean, check the baseball, Sean. He looked at him. He said, screw you. You check the baseball. I'm striking out and sitting down.
Those guys, it was an ambiance about them.
It's how they carried themselves. It's what they did. I mean, Nolan Ryan, he did not. If you wanted to swing like a big man, you were going to get pitched like a big man. I'll never forget when Greg Graybeck, that little bitty second baseman from the White Sox.
I remember him. Yep.
He took Nolan deep, hit a home run off him, and Graybeck took a pretty big swing for a little guy. Next time up, he wore one right between his shoulder blades. You're going to swing like a big man, you're going to get pitched like one. That's how it used to work. It don't work that way anymore.
No, not anymore, man. Yeah, you don't have the Auerbaskis or the Nolan Ryans and all these guys who come out here with all their fun and antics and this and that. But no, I've always been curious about that, because like I said, I mean, you would think that there is particularly, and I always just go back to Mariano Rivera because it was a presentation. When he comes out, he just had a demeanor. He gets on the mound, he throws one pitch. And me and you talked about this before. Everybody knows he had 3 or 4 pitches. They said he could have been a starting pitcher the way he threw those pitches. He perfected them. But he only needed one, and that's all he ever threw. He never overthought it.
because he mastered that was the way he delivered the ball. He did not cut the baseball. Like the guys today that are throwing cutters, they're
Mhm.
getting out here and doing this with their middle finger. That is
Mhm.
why you see so many Tommy John surgeries. The cutter and the slide step are the two biggest reasons for Tommy John because the slide step mechanically is horrible for your arm.
Mhm.
And the cutter, it's guys trying to make it cut. There's been two cutters that I've seen in baseball that were natural. Kenley Jansen and Mariano Rivera. They had to think to throw a ball that would run in on a right-hander. They just didn't do it. Their natural delivery was a cutter. That's how the ball came out of their hand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mariano, he happened to be able to throw it over a nickel or a dime if need be.
It's crazy to think about. Unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, Phillies have an opportunity to take a few games here from Milwaukee, which would be a really huge boost in getting them back into the divisional hunt and the wild card hunt here. But then after that, we start taking a little trip over to some of the American League ballparks here. They're going to be, I think it's a 3-game series in Cleveland and then Baltimore after that, which is a very difficult series. Yeah, Baltimore. I couldn't remember if Pittsburgh was before or after. It's Baltimore. So let's start with the Guardians here. Going out to Cleveland, opportunity now. They got to hit the road. And I think that the Cleveland's an opportunity that they could take advantage of as well.
Well, back in April and May, if you said they're going on the road, I'd said, well, they're going to lose the series. But the way they've played on the road lately, I don't care who they're playing.
They've been a really good road team.
Yes, they figured something out on the road, and now they're back 9 games above 500. And what was their lowest point this year? Wasn't it close to 8 games under again?
Oh yeah, it was ugly.
Yeah, I mean, so they're doing basically the same thing they did last year, only they have a more talented roster this year. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went out and got a bullpen arm. With Dominguez being hurt, which I could see coming from a mile away because he's so far under the ball,
Yeah.
and Alvarado, him being down again, they might need to find one big bullpen arm. Or Rob Thompson's going to have to start using the bullpen conventionally. When it's a save opportunity, Kimbrel, that's your game. It's that
Yeah.
simple. You have two setup guys and a closer. And the
Yep.
rest of
Vegas
your
7th, 8th, and
bullpen,
9th.
yeah, 7th, 8th, and 9th guy until Alvarado and Dominguez get healthy again. Either that or you have to go out and get another arm.
Yeah, I think I could see them regardless doing a bullpen move. Simply just because I think the bullpen is such a key factor when you talk about the playoffs now and guys don't go very deep in the games. It's such a short leash in the playoffs that I think having that extra depth is it's important for any team, I think, that's going to look to make a postseason run.
Well, I'll put it this way. Mr. Covey should not be a member of this baseball team after the trade deadline. They have to do something to improve upon him. He's just not a big league pitcher. I'm not saying it to disparage him in any way. It's just I don't believe that he can be successful on a continuous basis out of the bullpen.
And you very well may be right there. And, we could see them end up going out and pulling a move for 1 or 2 bullpen arms at this point. If you're looking at injuries and you're looking at guys who aren't living up to expectations, because you need to fill up any of these holes going in. And it's crazy to me. I'm looking at these schedules, right? And I'm looking at these records, like Cleveland. And again, for as disheartening as it sometimes feels when you look at the Phillies record, right? And not even the record, but you look at how many games behind, right? That's what you get stuck on. Like Cleveland is in second place in their division, and they're 3 games under 500.
Yeah.
Their divisional leader is 500.
They're fortunate to be in that kind of division.
Yeah, I know. But you think like when you have these teams that are competing for something in their division, but you look at it, and again, like Cleveland is a huge opportunity for the Phillies to step up here and start to make a run. And then obviously we have Baltimore after. Now Baltimore's a different monster. Baltimore has played very well this season. What do you think the keys to their success have been this year?
I don't know much about Baltimore. I honestly don't. I would be lying to you if I sat here and told you I know their roster. I don't know much about them at all. All I
I
know, where do they stand in the standings in the East?
They are one game out from Tampa for first place in the American League East.
Well, the Phillies just went down to Tampa and swept them, so they should be able to handle Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, and it is a hitter-friendly park. I think they'll be able to play really well there. Tampa, it's one of those things where, or I'm sorry, not Tampa, Baltimore. It almost has the Astros feel in the sense of they stunk for so long. I mean, they got really bad after Buck left there.
Yeah.
That you felt like at some point all of these picks were going to come up at one time. And it almost feels like that's where they're at. It's almost like I almost look at it like the 2008 Phillies, right? Where you, at one point, your core essentially all came up within a 2-year time span of each other.
Yeah.
And then all it was plugging in the other pieces around them. And I feel like that's where Baltimore is in a very competitive division, by the way. I mean, who would have thought that coming into the season, you would be looking at this division and the two teams at the bottom of the division? Maybe you could have said Boston, but Boston and New York.
That's unacceptable. To those two organizations, that ain't going to be acceptable.
They're 9 games out in the division, both of them.
And see, I can honestly see them catching Tampa. I can see the Yankees catching Tampa. Trust me when I tell you this, that Tampa Stadium, there is no home field advantage. Yeah. It's like walking into a morgue.
I've been there. I went a couple years ago.
It's such a bad ballpark. So I feel for them, and that walking into that park 81 times as a home team is depressing. It's like being the Montreal Expos back in the day. We pulled up the stadium one day, and the stadium started to fall down. So they had to cancel the series. This is how bad some of these stadiums are, and Tampa's is hands down the worst in all of sports.
I would argue maybe the Oakland Coliseum might compete with it, but you are right. It's a weird stadium, if you want to call it that.
At least you can see the blue sky.
That's true. It's Oakland. Weird. Like I went to a game a couple of years ago. It was my first time going down there to a game, and it was super weird. It was just like there's like nobody there.
In Oakland?
And they were good. They were really. I think they might have been in first place when I went. And they were good. There was nobody there. They had a Rosa Rain. They had all their guys, Glass now, all these guys they have now, and nobody showed up to the game. You could hear people's conversations. I was sitting on the third base side, like fourth row. I could hear a conversation somebody was having between home plate and first base, second row on the other side, and they weren't talking that loud. That's how crazy it was.
Yeah, well, Oakland wasn't my favorite place to play. The Bay Area. You hear San Francisco fans all the time cry and bitch about Philly fans. Trust me, I've been a visitor in both ballparks. There are no worse fans than San Francisco Giants fans.
Yeah.
When we played them in '89 in the NLCS, a guy poured a beer on my head in the bullpen. And we were in that little cage down the left field line.
Yeah.
So I filled up a Gatorade cup full of water and fired it back at him.
Uh-huh.
This is God's honest truth. I read the police report after the game. San Francisco police were going to arrest me during the game until the National League got involved.
Wow.
The police report, battery with a clear liquid. That was the charge.
What?
I got a beer poured on my head, and I got charged with battery with a clear liquid.
Battery with a clear liquid. That's a new one. I never heard that before. I'll have to keep that in mind. Jesus. Oh, wow. Well, yeah,
They,
I've heard it's an interesting crowd out there. I haven't been to
I'll
a
tell you this:
Giants
they
game,
got
but
some of the best food. They're right there with Philly when it comes to food in that stadium.
I
Beautiful place
believe
to
it.
watch a game. But
Yeah.
the fans, they make Philly fans look tame.
Well, a lot to be desired for. Yeah, I can believe it. I feel like you see a lot of that, unfortunately. Just by the football fans out there, we hear a lot of those kinds of stories.
Oh,
Um,
their radio host out there went online on his show and called Philadelphia fans scumbags. I wonder how many of the fans he's met in San Francisco.
oh, I'm sure not many, and I'll tell you why. It's such a lazy narrative. I was seeing a conversation I had the other day with, it's you still get the snowballs that were thrown in 1960,
Yeah,
like an entire generation who's almost gone at this point. And we're talking about that's it's all lazy and it's all hypocritical because case in point, Pittsburgh fans in football, Mitch. My cousin's from Pittsburgh. He played college football, almost made it to the pros. He's a massive, massive Steelers fan. And one of the things he always told me, he said, "You think," and he was in the military. He said, "People think that Philly fans are crazy." He said, "We used to go out to games, and they would find Browns fans in the dumpsters, beaten half to death because they walked through a tailgate just for being a Browns fan. They'd be
yeah,
literally finding people in the dumpsters behind the stadiums."
that's taking fandom to a
Uh,
level that it doesn't need to go to.
Never needs to go to
I
that
don't
level.
care who you root for.
Me neither.
It doesn't. If I showed up at a game and you were wearing a Braves jersey, I work with a guy every day that is a Braves fan. So I don't care who you root for. Just if you're going to root for them, be loyal to them. And
That's it.
that's what I love about Phillies fans. They're
They are.
loyal and they're honest.
They are. They're very loyal. I
Go
get a lot
go.
of heat for being a Cardinals fan. I grew up an Ozzie Smith guy when I was a
It's a
kid. He was my
great place to
favorite
play
player.
baseball. St. Louis is a baseball city. But you look at LA. Go back to 19 was it 88 when Gibson hit the home run off
Yeah.
Eckersley?
Hmm.
Look at the shot from behind home plate because there's a gap in the outfield bleachers.
Yep.
It's nothing but tail lights. It's a game that's winnable, and these guys have already left the game.
Yeah.
They're not fans. It's a social event. They show up third inning, leave in the seventh, and they missed one of the greatest moments in the history of baseball.
It's like going to a Lakers game. Everybody just shows up and it's a social event.
Yeah.
At least Knicks games are like that, but at least the Knicks, like, they are a hardcore fan base. That's why I would say Northeast sports, people want to give them a hard time. And I don't care if you're a New York fan, you're a Boston fan, because people have a lot. We all talk smack on each other when it comes to New York, Philly, Boston. But at the end of the day, whether you love New York fans or not as a Philly fan or vice versa, I will appreciate and respect that fan base so much more than the casual fan base who doesn't understand or appreciate the game. And I feel like and I feel like it's almost a disrespect to you guys who are on the field by not taking the time. And I get that there's casual fans, but when you're talking about large majorities of the fan base who don't take the time to understand the game that you guys are putting out there and entertaining, it bothers me.
It,
Which is
it,
why
it,
I will always appreciate the Northeast fan base more.
the Northeast fan base, it's because it's a way of life. You look up in Boston, you got the Patriots, you got the Red Sox, you got the Celtics. These are generational type organizations that great granddads have taken their great grandkids and watched games with them. This is on in the Northeast, people mortgage their homes to buy season tickets. That's the kind of people that watch sports in the Northeast. I don't care if it's Boston, Philly, or New York. That's how they approach their sports. They take them serious. They hold your feet to the fire if you're a player that doesn't give your all, which they should. Uh, It just shocks me that people from the left coast they wouldn't survive up here.
Oh yeah.
They
So
just
Mitch,
would not survive it.
all right. So we're going to be wrapping up the show momentarily here. We do want to run the RTC ad, and
Oh,
then
okay.
I want to ask you one question here on the other side, and then we're going to wrap up with that question.
You got it, brother.
So there's the phone
Williams
number,
here.
RTC.
If your company ships freight, join my winning team at Raymond Transportation Corporation. Let us become part of your team. RTC has been serving shippers nationwide for 26 years. With 10 terminals located throughout the U.S., volume LTL, small LTL, truckload, and rail. You can count on RTC to be the closer you need. I know firsthand that the Delaware Valley demands accountability. Call me at 800-206-3983 to schedule a meeting. Give me one shipment, and we will earn the rest. Mitch Williams here. If your company ships freight, join my winning team at Raymond Transportation Corporation. Let us become part of your team.
That's a loop.
RTC has been serving shippers.
All right. So there you guys. Make sure you guys check them out. RTC Services. Mitch over here. You get taken care of all your freight services and everything that you guys need taken care of. Mitch, here on the other side, I wanted to just ask you one thing because we talked about the trade deadline. I thought this was kind of a good thing that we can end on. You're a person who's played in the major leagues. You've been traded at one point or another. You've been around guys who've been traded mid-season, and it is a change. It's a change in culture in the locker room. It's a change for obviously for the player, whether you're someone going from a competitive team who maybe is a piece for somewhere else, and vice versa. You're being traded to a better situation that gives you a chance to win. So, can you just give us a brief perspective of what it's like to be a player who is put in that position where you're a piece that's traded?
Yeah, I was invited to leave a few times in my career. So the worst one was back in 1990 or after the 1990 season with the Cubs. In 89, we went to the NLCS. 1990, I tore my posterior cruciate ligament in my knee. And I missed 30 days. They said they could reconstruct it, and I'd be out at close to a year. Or they said you can get in a weight room and blast your quad to take the place of the ligament. I said, I'll do that. So I pitched 30 days later. And then I only got 7 save opportunities in the second half. So I was 7 for 7, but we were so far out of it by then that they didn't want my numbers to get run up because I was arbitratable again.
Oh yeah.
So come that off season, I hear I'm getting traded all off season. Go through spring training with the Cubs, rumors flying the whole time. And then finally, after one of the games in spring training, the media was all gathered around my locker. And Jim Fry was the general manager at the time. And the media said to me, they said, hey, Mitch, Jim Fry says he could release you instead of trading you. I said, that's fine. They said, that's fine. I said, yeah, I know the rules of the game. So got done with the meeting, and I went in and knocked on Jim Fry's office door. He opened it. I walked in. I sat down on the couch, and this is honest to God how the conversation went. I said, well, Jimmy, I hear you might release me. And he goes, yeah, that's a possibility. I said, okay, then I'll be a free agent a year early, and you'll be declared the dumbest GM in history. He goes, how's that? I said, because I know you can trade me today for 2 guys making $100,000 to the Phillies. And we're past the release date, Jim. You got to pay me 1/6 of my salary. So, which was $375. I said, I ain't the brightest bulb on the tree, Jim, but I can count like a son of a bitch. And you ain't going to release me. So we get to the end of spring training. We have to play an exhibition game in Milwaukee, come home, play another exhibition game against Milwaukee on Saturday night. Sunday we're off. Monday we're off. Opening day's Tuesday. So I come home to Chicago. I have the clubhouse kid move all my stuff from the stadium that I left there over the winter into my apartment. Went and played golf with Mark Grace that day. Came home, set the apartment up, went across the street, went grocery shopping, came home. I still remember what I had. I had pork chops and a baked potato. I cleaned the kitchen up. I sat down, and I swear to God, the phone rang. And it was Jim Fry.
Oh,
He
God.
said, I've traded you. I said, where? He said, Philadelphia. I said, you son of a bitch. and he did it just to screw me.
Yeah.
I said, you could have traded me 3 weeks ago for the same two guys, which was Bob Scanlon and Chuck McElroy.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
waited till the night before the season to make sure that he could screw me. And then the Phillies open the next day. So now I got to pack up all my stuff, and I got to be in Flushing at 1 o'clock the next day for the game. I
Oof.
show up. I ain't got any maroon shoes. I didn't have a name on my jersey, nothing. I just went out there and I pitched that day. I got to the ballpark about 12:30 for a 1 o'clock game.
Wow.
So that's how hectic it can be. I mean, to have all your furniture and everything moved into your apartment, set it up, and then have to call your wife and say, hey, I just got traded. You got to come to Chicago and pack up this apartment.
That's crazy. Wow. Love that story. And as a not huge Cubs fan, love that even more. But listen, this was a great show. Again, make sure you guys check Mitch out next week. He's going to be back with Tom Arnone here on Here's the Thing. We want to say thank you to RTC Services as well as Philly Sports Trips for sponsoring the show. And Mitch, again, great conversation. I was glad I got to hop on with you, and I'm sure I'll be back on again at some point with you, filling in for Big Dad. But for myself, for Tom Arnone, for my guy over here, Mitch.
I appreciate it, Chrome.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime. Man, I love talking baseball with you. And for Ralph on the back end, poor guy, he's on vacation doing this. So we apologize for some of the little fumbles, but he's trying to do it on the beach. So
well,
love you, Ralph.
They know who the two people are trying to do this, and we ain't the brightest guys.
That's right. We're just the magnetic personality.
Yes.
We bring the personality to the show.
No math or anything like that.
But a big week for the Phillies, so make sure you guys check it out and come back and talk next week with Tom and Mitch. But for myself, for Mitch, and everybody here at A2D Radio, have a great week. We love you guys. Give somebody a hug and take care.
Thank you, guys. Have a good week.